Hello and welcome. In this video, I'll be going over how to use both the Vog-25 and Vog-25P STL files for the APS C02 Smart Shotgun Shell. Afterwards, I'll be showing you a few different ammo loads using these shells, as well as comparing both the regular shells and the stock shell that comes with the launcher in a firing demonstration. Once I'm done with all that, if you're interested in modifying or further tweaking these files, I'll be going over a bit of the design details. So without further ado, let's begin. So these shells are very, very simple to use. Simply take your Vog shell and take your APS Smart shell and insert it into the back of the shell. Press it in with your finger there. You want to make sure that the shell is fully seated, and you want to press around and make sure it's fully in there, because if it's not, and you try to insert it into the grenade launcher, it's going to shoot into your hands, which I've definitely done before, and you don't want to do. Once you've fully inserted the APS C02 Smart Shell into the Vog, you'll want to take your two 1.5 millimeter tall, 4 millimeter wide neodymium magnets and insert them onto the release button of the shell. They attach on very easily, like so. I already had these magnets around at home, but I will include a link below in the description if you want to purchase them for yourself so that you may fire these Vog shells. Once you've loaded your shotgun shell into the Vogs and placed the magnet on the back, there's nothing left to do. You can store them in your pouch and they fit perfectly fine, or when you're ready to fire, simply insert it into the GP just like you would the stock shower shell. Push it in until you hear a click, and then pull the trigger. And it works perfectly. After you've fired the Vog, if you wish to unload the shell or unload an unfired shell, simply take the shotgun shell ramrod file and insert it into the tip of the lump, like so. And then you just push, and they come right out. This is shaped in such a way that it should easily pass through the Vogs with no problem. It's about exactly the same diameter as the shell, so it should just push it out perfectly while not having any resistance on the inside of the Vog. Like I said, it should be smooth all the way through. To get the magnets out of the shotgun shell, simply take a larger stack of magnets and press it to the back of the shell. Should be able to rip them right out like that. The magnetic force is strong enough to rip out the other one, so as long as you have a decently sized stack of magnets, you should be able to remove the rest quite easily. So some details about the ammo and capacity, the fuel types of these shells, etc. The stock shell here takes 36 BBs in total, 6 in each hole, and there are 6 holes, so a total of 36. And you fill it with green gas, but I use propane, and it works pretty well. I fill it for about 15 to 20 seconds typically, and in the firing demonstration you'll see the ranges and generally the kind of spread. As for the shotgun shells, they are of course designed for CO2, and that's what I use with them. I've been using this Tag-In Fist 2 CO2 filler, which does work perfectly well, but veteran APS CO2 shell owners often use HPA tanks regulated to 1200 PSI, as it's much more consistent, and in the future I intended to make a similar purchase for myself. In terms of the ammo you can fit in these shells, you can fit as many BBs as you want, or really as many BBs as you physically can, inside this plastic tube here. However, the most popular loading method online, which I will be linking below, recommends that you fill the shell with about 17 BBs with a paper wad in front of the BBs and on the bottom of the BBs. This provides a consistent spread and very good distance. Aside from the BB loads, you can also, in theory, fit whatever you want in the shotgun shell, so I've opted to make some of my own ammunition like these. They are made using 3/4 inch foam cell backer rod. I'll probably be making another video going over these in more detail because I have some explosive rounds. But again, more on that another time. One thing I'll mention right now when we get to the firing demonstration is, while I've been getting fairly consistent performance with the APS shotgun shells, this Fist 2 adapter sometimes doesn't give me as much CO2 as I want, and so I think a better representation of the performance of the APS shotgun shells would be gotten if I had an HPA tank. So that's just something to keep in mind. But without further ado, let's go on to the range. So here we are at the range. I have 4 targets behind me.
From where I'll be firing, they are 10 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters, and 25 meters from the position. Today I'll be using my trusty Cyma CMO40 with my grenade launcher. So without further ado, let's get to the shooting. One more thing I forgot to mention, and I figured it'd be best to demonstrate it here. This shower shell that comes with this stock GP, it has no way to hold in the BBs. So if you were to point the launcher down, which you do all the time, or just point the grenade down, I mean, even if you look at it funny, they just fall out. There is a solution, however. So the solution is to stuff tape into the barrel here. But unfortunately, I have to sacrifice the capacity of 36. I have to take out one BB in order to fit this tape in here, so now this is only holding 30. But once you've applied the tape, well, problem solved. Although, it's kind of shitty that you even have to do this in the first place. It should just hold them in. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind, and I'm not sure if this will affect the performance. In my experience so far, it hasn't really, but I guess you'll be the judge of that.
Here we go. World's hardest trigger pull. So hard I need two hands. Damn. That was about 30 meters, I'd say. Another shot out of the stock shower shell with slightly less gas. Here we go. Also went just slightly past 25, looks to be about 27 meters. All right, here we are. Now moving on to the APS shotgun shells inside the Vogs. We will load and fire 4 in total. So I'm just gonna keep on shooting and loading until I'm out of ammo. Let's go. It's about 25 meters. Shot number 2. That went a little bit farther. That's probably about the same as the stock shower shell on 27 meters. Now, Vog-25P. Again, about 25, 26 meters. Last shot here. Again, 25 to 27 meters. So it's fairly consistent in its performance.
All right, so now that you've seen a comparison between the stock shell and the APS shotgun shell with BBs, I thought I would also show you a little of the custom projectiles. Here I have the aforementioned explosive foam round, and I'll be firing them out of the Vog here. I have 4 loaded up, just like I did earlier with the BBs, and we'll see the performance.
All right, here we are firing off the foam projectiles. And aim for the far target. I hit something a little closer than the far one. Shot number 2 now. That went about, looks like 20 meters. Shot number 3. Oh, they're actually exploding. That one went 15. Now for the last shot here. That one also went, looks about 15 to 17 meters.
All right, now for some chronograph tests, starting with the stock shower shell. .88 FPS. Somehow I doubt that, but this is about as close as we're going to get in terms of a chronograph for a shotgun.
All right, now loading the APS shotgun shell with BBs, 17 in total. $121 on the chronograph. And lastly, I will be firing the APS C02 shotgun shell again, but this time with the explodey foam ammunition, and it should hit the fence back there and make a nice pop. Make sure the chronograph is on. 98 FPS. And I'm sure you heard that loud report. So it seems appropriate that, you know, if I'm going to be shooting this at other people and asking you to shoot it at other people, I have to be shot with it myself. So I will now get shot. Remember, safety first. It's definitely felt that one with no padding here. So that was both the shower shell and the APS shotgun shell filled with the 17 BB load that is very popular, and my own custom explosive ammunition. I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration there. I would say the stock shower shell has an average range of about 25 to 30 meters. The APS CO2 shotgun shell, which of course we have in our VOGs, shoots about 20 to 25 meters, and then my custom foam ammunition inside the shells, I would say, is about 15 to 20 meters. So I know that's kind of a broad range, but I mean, ultimately it's a shotgun, right? It's a general hit weapon. It's not meant for precision. So I would say those are acceptable general ranges of the estimated distance.
So now that you've seen a little bit of the shooting, let's get into the nerd shit. Talk a little bit about the design of the VOG shell. But before I really get into it, I want to give a shout out to an Airsoft creator named Renegade Cow. They were the individual that originally came up with the concept for these VOGs. They made them out of PVC with EVA foam ammunition, and they were really a strong inspiration for this design. Aside from shouting out Renegade Cow, I also want to thank the two creators of the original models that I modified to make these, both the original Vog-25P model and the original Vog-25 model. As you can see, these had to be rescaled slightly in order to fit in the launcher. The actual 2-scale grenade is quite a bit bigger. And I'm assuming that that is the case because they don't want you reverse engineering this into a real functioning launcher. So the way these shells work, I would say, is fairly straightforward. Within the GP, there is a slight locking hook that is connected to this release button, and it snags onto the rim at the very base of the grenade here. So when you shove it in, it clicks into that hook, and then it's locked in, and right now it can't come out until you press the button. Pretty straightforward. So I quite literally just copied the dimensions from here onto here. And now I can just, you hear the click, and it's locked into place until you press the button, and it comes out. It's not that complex. If you're interested in what the specific dimensions are, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but hey, feel free to take apart my model. It's open source for a reason, right? So one more thing to keep in mind is the tolerances on these shells are extremely tight. I'll have it on screen, but you can see in the 3D file there are 2 extra additional rings on the file that tighten up a little bit to make sure that the shell has a really tight fit. It's so tight that when you put in the ramrod, I'm sure you could hear that. There's a very audible seal being made there. So if you paint the shells at all, or if you know your printer is going to shrink your prints, I highly recommend you upscale by 0.5 or 1% at least, especially if you're printing an FDM and you know it's going to shrink. You're going to want to make sure it's bigger than you expect it to be, because if it's too tight, well, you don't want to do that sanding. And at least for me, when I painted these, I wasn't very careful with my masking, so some of the paint got on the inside. I figured it'd be fine. It wasn't fine. It was a lot of sanding. So learn from my mistakes. Make sure you effectively mask if you're going to paint these, and when it comes to printing, make sure it is exactly to scale, because if it's not, it's probably not going to work correctly, and you don't want any misfires or for the shell to just not even fit in the VOG at all. A potential issue that may come up in your use of these, but has not personally for me, is that these magnets, these neodymium magnets, are quite strong. Considering that the metal clasp on the Vog pouch is, well, made of metal, there is always a chance that the magnet will rip itself off of the Vog and onto any metal surface around you. Again, in my short experience using these, I have not had that problem, and as long as you leave the clasps open on the Vog pouch, there's very little chance that you'll accidentally rip the magnets off in the process of removing the Vogs. So far, again, I've had no problems, but if you plan to crawl on metal grates or throw yourself against a metal shack or something, you might want to think twice. Or, hey, if something happens, report back to me and maybe I'll come up with a fix. So if you've made it this far, well, thank you first off, and I hope you enjoyed. It's pretty much everything there is to know that I could think to share about the grenade. If you have any further questions, please, of course, feel free to comment or message me depending on where you're seeing this, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.